Well, good morning to both of you. Look, I think we were all horrified over the summer at those scenes of sewage outflows into the rivers, into the sea, and it's a horrible situation, and it goes back a number of years. And of course, Dr. Coffey has just been appointed as the new Environment Secretary, having been the Deputy Prime Minister, of course, in Liz Truss's disastrous period. But she was also in the Environment Department a few years ago, and when we looked back, we found that during her time, the amount of money going to the Environment Agency for checking this kind of thing had been halved. And at the same time, the number of spills went up by about 50%. So we think she's got some questions to answer. Obviously, what we want to do is make sure that there are improvements in future.
Yes, I gather that you've got figures that show that, on average, water companies in England and Wales are pumping raw sewage into the natural environment every 2.5 minutes. That's beaches and playing fields and places where people like to swim. It's an appalling business, isn't it?
Shocking. It's awful. I'm afraid it's a complicated situation. I'm afraid it's partly because of we still rely on so much of the Victorian systems for so much of our infrastructure. That's a pretty horrible picture we're seeing there. The water companies are not supposed to do this unless there's very heavy rain. But I'm afraid the evidence is they've been doing it many more times than they should. And they've been getting away with it for years. And at the same time, of course, bills have been going up. And they've also been dishing out huge amounts of money to shareholders, £72 billion since privatisation. So it's a real mess, and the government needs to get a grip.
Look, forgive me, I'm not saying it's not important, because, I mean, it clearly is important. However, I can imagine quite a lot of people watching and listening right now saying, haven't you got something better to focus on than looking at Therese Coffey's voting record several years ago?
Well, look, she's in charge at the Environment Department now. As I said, she was in charge during that mad 44 days when essentially the government crashed the economy within hours of our pension funds collapsing. So it's pretty important that when she's been given a new job like this, I'm pretty surprised she's been given a new job, given that record, but she's now in charge of our environment. And I don't think it's unreasonable to look back and see what her record was before.
I mean, if the polls are to be believed, and they certainly all seem to agree that at the moment Labour's doing very, very well, and if there were a general election soon, you'd get in, which would make you Environment Minister, something like that. What would you do, given that we've got no money, what would you do that would actually cure the sewage scandal problem?
Well, I wouldn't say there's no money in the country. There is money. The question is who has it. But we laid out a series of plans. At the moment, those pipes, those horrible pipes you're seeing in the clips, most of them have monitoring devices on. Not all. And the kind of thing we would do is we'd insist the water companies are fined if they're not monitoring them properly. We're aiming to get this 90% of this stopped by 2030. There'll be automatic fines when there are these unnecessary discharges. And we're also determined to make sure that the directors of these companies take some responsibility. So there's a number of things we can do, and we'd urge the government to get on and do it as soon as possible.